So this is the Central Florida Computer Society and Saratoga Technology User Group Windows Special Interest Group, normally chaired by Huey Poplock. I'm Mike Ungerman, sitting in for Huey while he fights a loss of power in Sarasota, but he said he'd drop in and see us periodically. And as I mentioned when we were in our social chat, if you have any questions, please raise your hand. And I've asked Dick Vogel to monitor those and call them to my attention. And if you want to put things in the chat that you'd like us to address, again, Dick, if you'll do that and call it to our attention. I have Bob Costisha with us, and he's agreed to co-host today, primarily focusing on the Windows 11 things, but keep me straight on my answers because I'm not that deep into the technology of Windows. So the way Huey runs this on a regular basis is his website. It's huey.net/WinSIG. And in the WinSIG section, he will have the agenda, which he has today posted. Each of these are hot links that you can go to each item yourself and do research. So as we talk about various things, if you don't get all the information we impart, please go back to this site, click on the link, and you'll be going to the same websites that we're talking to. Last month's items are posted, and he then posts the video of the recording so you can go back and be entertained from prior months' meetings. So, first item, depreciated features in the Windows clients. This is an excellent website, and I opened it up in the full mode. I will be showing the reader mode in most cases, and I'm using Edge as the browser of choice today. So I wanted you to see the actual website first, and it's learn.microsoft.com. And at that site, in the left-hand column, are a whole bunch of items that you can go into and then expand upon. If you're interested in Windows 11, you've got overview, requirements, plans, enterprise features, which probably don't affect most of us, what's new in the various different versions that have come out. Windows 10 has its own respective article items. And today's first item, depreciated features, also shows resources if you want more information, and then a removed features section as well that talks about functionality that's removed. So as things are updated in Windows 11, get back to that, I'm going to go ahead and change into the immersive reader. And this is built into Edge. And they talk about what's actually been depreciated. And to save my voice, I figured I'd show you the feature that once you're in this mode, you can actually have an AI read the item. So on first couple of paragraphs, I'll let the AI talk to you.
Deprecated features for Windows Client. Each version of Windows Client adds new features and functionality. Occasionally, new versions also remove features and functionality, often because they added a newer option. This article provides details about the features and functionalities that are no longer being developed in Windows Client. For more information about features that were removed, see Windows Features Removed. The features in this article are no longer being actively developed and might be removed in a future update. Some features were replaced with other features or functionality, and some are now available from other sources.
So let me get back into the view on this. They give some examples of how you can get notified with a reader service. But the key that I liked about this particular page is it does have a table, and the table will give you a lot of detail that is probably too much information, but it does at least give you the categories of things that will no longer be supported in the latest versions of Windows 11 as they come out. For example, if you are still using Windows 7 applications in your Windows 10 or 11 for playback of protected content, like way back when I was using Windows Media Player, and I would actually play some of my protected DVDs, even rip them and then play them, and save them on my computer. So if I still had those, they are basically saying it's no longer going to be supported, even if you paid for those DVDs. As of September 2024, these playbacks will not be supported. So you have to find applications that will do that. And again, a lot of these things won't be stuff that you yourself use on a regular basis, but they're telling you where things disappear to if for some reason you notice they're not there anymore. I've never used Paint 3D, but it's being removed in November. It won't be available anymore in the Microsoft Store. And then Adobe fonts. So some of those PostScript fonts. I remember I used to use PostScript fonts a lot because I had one of the early laser printers that was actually a PostScript printer. Direct Access is something that was used a lot in Windows, and it's going to be removed in the future. And I wasn't quite sure what NTLM was, but it has to do with networking. There's some driver verifiers that aren't going to be used anymore. Let's see here, test-based Windows, mixed reality. I don't have one of those devices that lets me look at what's out in front and then mix it in with virtual reality, but apparently that's not going to continue to work, or will continue to work through 2026. All right. So maybe something else will support it. Microsoft Defender Application Guard for Edge. It's being deprecated for business and will no longer be updated. So that doesn't really affect me. Legacy console mode. I haven't been using the console that much. So they're saying it's an optional feature on demand. So I guess people who need to use the console will actually do that. Windows speech recognition had been built into some of the applications previously. And now they're basically saying that, you probably are going to want to use like Windows 365, for example, that has speech recognition and dictation and things along those lines. So we continue on down. There's a bunch of these things. One of the things that I did do, and I see if I put it up here or not. Let's see. I did use Copilot itself, which I'll demonstrate, and I did use Gemini to help me with some of these things. So, for example, if I really wanted to know what a remote mail slot was, and it's telling me it was first disabled, but it really doesn't tell me that much. Now, I can click on this link and get the data, but I could also create a prompt for any of the AIs and just copy that and paste it into an AI query and say, please explain why the deprecation of remote mail slots, how that affects me as a user. And they'll come back and they'll give you some additional information. So I found that helpful. I have gotten some old computers that had WordPad installed, and lots of files in WordPad format. And that's it. WordPad as an application itself is no longer being updated, and it's going to be removed in a future release of Windows. And they're saying, we recommend Microsoft Word for opening up rich text documents. So I still get a lot of RTF files that are emailed to me, and I just open them up in Word or LibreOffice Write. Let's see what else is there. Cortana is being deprecated, and I turned Cortana off, quite frankly. She was annoying to me, but it's it's something that some people did like it, and it's going away. And they're basically saying you can still get it available on Outlook Mobile, Teams Display, and Teams Room. So again, some of the business applications will have it available. Let's see what else we got here. BitLocker to go reader. It's still supported. Many people don't realize that a default installation of Windows 11 may actually install encrypted, take all of your data on the drive and encrypt it with BitLocker. And so what they're basically saying that if you had an old hard drive that was being used for a previous version of Windows and you didn't wipe it and do a fresh install, you were just doing an update and took the upgrade path, that you might not be able to access it because BitLocker is not going to be, is being deprecated in later systems. So they're giving you some command lines that you can do. My suggestion is get your data off the old drive and do a fresh install, but there is a way to get around that. And let's see what else we got on here. Edge. The old Edge, the pre-Chromium version of Edge, is no longer being developed. Most of you by now, if you're using Edge, it's already been updated on your computers. Dynamic disk features actually allowed you to have multiple hard drives considered as a single dynamic disk. And that feature is being replaced by storage spacers in a future release. And let's see what else we got in here. Taskbar settings, OneSync service, Windows Help. I think most of us probably use Windows Help file a lot before we regularly went to the internet and searched for help items. And Windows did come with a lot of help built in. And you would have the help files and you would open them up with the Windows Help viewer. And then you could go through looking for the particular item that you wanted help on. And they're saying that it's no longer supported in Windows 10. And that's a good question to ask. Is it then by deference or by implication no longer supported in Windows 11? Because they essentially saying they want you to look online for your help. And sync your settings, backend storage for the sync process, but it's still going to sync. So you can see essentially what Microsoft is doing every time they come out with a particular version or a particular update. This is going to be added to it. Let's see if I can come out of this reader and go back. Excuse me. And I want to come out of that. There we go. So every time there's a major update, if you take a look at what's new in that update, so here's 22H2, for example, and then what is going to be deprecated or what is going to be removed. And this particular section is almost the same, except they're hitting the major capabilities. And so the very first one, for example, is WordPad, which we already covered. Okay, I'm going to take a quick switch back. And I'm going to stop sharing. And questions. Marilyn, I see your hand is raised.
Hello. That mentioned that you should clean out your hard drive and reboot or reinstall. I have 3 very old laptops that I've just been hanging on to because I don't know what to do with them. And I don't know how to, I mean, I'd like to just donate them or send them someplace, but I don't know how to erase my hard drive thoroughly enough to do that.
Bob, would you like to offer a suggestion to Marilyn?
Going to donate it, then of course you want to wipe the hard drive. And there are easiest thing that I can think of is install CCleaner. And in CCleaner, there's a function to wipe your hard drive.
Okay, I have C cleaner, so I've never noticed that before, but I'll give it a try.
Yep. That will
And
totally wipe the hard drive, and you can even choose how many times you want the data overridden. And remember, the more times you overwrite, the longer it will take. But the more secure it'll be that nobody will ever get to your information.
great, thank you very much.
Dick?
Yes, Laura Michaels earlier asked the question. She would love to hear some tips on getting Windows 11 to work well on machines that worked Windows 10. It updated to 11, but it's continuously hitting the hard drive and running incredibly slow.
You're still
Well-
running, if you're still running a computer that has an IDE drive, it's never going to be fast. Whether it's Windows 10, 11, 8, 7, doesn't matter. It's your hard drive itself that's the problem. You know, if you have one of the newer hard drives, even an old computer is going to be quicker than anything you ever experienced. But as long as you still have the old IDE hard drive, your computer is always going to be slow.
It depends too a lot on how old the computer is. I just worked on the Central Florida Computer Society's probably 10-year-old, maybe 12-year-old computer, big, heavy 17-inch machine. But because it's so old, it's also accessible. I can flip it over. It actually has couple of screws and you can take out the panel, and the hard drive just literally lifts out in your hand. And then you can go on Amazon or go down to Best Buy or the Geek Squad or whatever and say, hey, I'd like to put in a modern SSD and replace it. And then if you're working with the Geek Squad, you can say, hey, I'd like you to even transfer my files and put a new operating system on it. The newer models, it's going to be harder to replace the hard drive because you're literally taking the notebook apart. And I have done that, but I've also ruined a couple notebooks trying to do that too. So again, finding a good computer store that could do it for you, look at the price of doing that compared with getting a relatively inexpensive notebook computer and then just doing what Marilyn was suggesting, and that's donating the old one.
There's also a question of how much memory the computer has. If it doesn't have enough RAM, it may be bogged down swapping stuff out to the hard drive, which would keep things spinning.
Agreed. Yes, I probably, in my own mind, I'd want at least 16 gigabytes. I could probably live with 8, but I'd want 16 gigabytes of RAM.
There's also something to remember, that your computer will never be any faster than its slowest component. Okay? Yep. So, you know, you make everything new, but you still have the old clunker. It's still going to be the old clunker.
Laura adds, this was bought in 2020. I bought another machine that year, different brand, higher specs, IDE hard drive, and it works fine. And then she adds, it's hitting the hard drive even when nothing is running but background processes.
Yes, and that does happen. Tim?
Offhand, when it comes to memory, the absolute minimum 11 should have is 8 gigabytes.
Yep.
But more memory, the better. So 16, and for some people who especially host Zoom meetings, 24, 32, even higher may be a good thing for them. But it also depends on what you're doing on your system. If you're just an attendee at Zoom meetings, 8 will work probably fine most of the time.
Thank you, Tim. Okay, let me go back. Bob, did you want to make any comments about the deprecation issues?
Most of that affects programs that we haven't used for quite some time. They're just acknowledging the fact that they're no longer supported.
I agree. Updating programs are as important as upgrading your PC. Okay, I'm going to close this and gain some memory. I was interested to see how many tabs I could get open and have stable in Edge. So far it's been holding, and I do have 32 gigs of RAM. So this is continuing on. Okay, so this kind of starts the section that includes Copilot. So we're going to be talking about Copilot as part of a new Copilot PC, as we are some of the features that are coming with Copilot. So once again, let's let our friendly read aloud talk a little bit about what's coming up with Copilot PCs in November.
Microsoft reveals new AI features coming in preview on Copilot Plus PCs in November. Microsoft has unveiled today a couple of new AI experiences that it's planning to launch in preview on Copilot Plus PCs in November. These new AI features have been announced alongside a new Copilot experience designed to make the chatbot work more like a true AI companion. In October, Windows insiders on Copilot Plus PCs will be able to test the delayed recall feature that was initially set to launch in June. Recall will offer a new way to instantly find something users have previously seen on their PCs by taking snapshots of what appeared on their screen. Windows Intelligence in your inbox. Sign up for our new free newsletter to get 3 times saving tips each Friday.
Let's come down here, if I can. Should start from there.
Friday.
No.
And get free copy.
All right, so it's insisting on that so you get to hear me. So last week, Microsoft detailed the changes it made to make recall more secure. So recall is one of the features that Copilot is doing, and it's a process of capturing the activity that you do on your computer by capturing a sequence of screens. And it originally came with recall turned on, and they're saying on a Copilot PC now, it'll be turned off by default. And the snapshots that it takes will be stored locally and be automatically encrypted. This will automatically exclude sensitive information such as credit card details and passwords. And they're also saying that recall will be available in preview on the new Copilot Plus PCs powered by Intel and AMD CPUs in November via the Windows Insider program. So essentially, if you buy a new PC and it is considered a Copilot Plus PC, it'll come with 24H2 on it, but it may not have all the features. And then the features will be rolled out initially to those on the Insider program in November, and eventually then will reach the PCs. I don't think I'll be one of the guys that does this right away. I'm going to kind of wait and see, what happens. So what I wanted to do is sort
Mike, you would have to have a PC that has
NPU chip.
That's correct. If it doesn't have the chip, as none of my machines do, this is not something I'm ever going to be able to use. till I get a computer that has the NPU chip.
Right. And I think I mentioned before we started recording, I am considering a new mini computer just to downsize my footprint. And it would be nice for that mini computer to have an NPU chip, but I also want to see what Copilot in its plus iteration, if you will, incarnation, is going to actually do for me. Now, I have some articles that actually talk about what recall is going to do in terms of the kinds of activities and applications that Microsoft can put on the computer. And I wanted to switch quickly, I think, to this one. Here is what I asked. I asked Microsoft Copilot to take the particular article and interpret it, which they said it couldn't. And then they went ahead and expanded the content for me anyway. So what they're saying that the new AI features on Copilot PCs, what are they? So recall is the digital memory. If you think about the word recall, it's basically what they're implementing. They want the computer to remember what you did and build a database on your computer so that then you can access it with the applications that employ the AI itself. And then some additional things that they're going to do, they're going to streamline task management with a function called click to do, making it easier to execute commands and perform actions with fewer clicks. So it's like having a proactive assistant ready to get things done. So there's lots of stuff I do repetitively on my current computer. And that would, if that were able to get rid of some of the workload that I have to do that's repetitive, I would look forward to that. It's supposed to improve Windows search. So now this is Windows search on my computer rather than going out to the internet, which search can do, but you can tell it you're looking for files on your computer for some that do certain things. It's supposed to also give you super resolution in photos. So if you've got an NPU chip that employs AI to enhance your images and does it locally, not on a web application that may have access to AI, then it's supposed to make them clearer and more detailed. And I understand, again, from some of the articles I saw when I researched this, law enforcement is looking forward to this because they say if they get an image of a crime scene and it's blurry, that AI can actually clear it up by interpolating the pixels and telling them what is the most likely configuration of the pixel that actually makes it the image that you want to see. And then generative fill and erase in Paint. You can do that now, like in Google Photos on your phones, where you can actually use their magic eraser. But this is going to actually give this capability to Paint, which is a native application in Windows. And I think this next one, let me just see. Okay, I asked Gemini if you would please explain to me what recall does, and then what are the pros, and then what are the cons? Because there seems to be a lot of discussion about on both of them. So giving fair sides, if you will, it discusses both the pros and the cons, and saying enhanced productivity because it can speed up your task by making it easier to find previously viewed content. So recall, in order to do what it's going to have to do, you're going to have done something that recall's keeping track of. It's not just going to, on its own, go through everything that you've got on your computer without your, control. And if you can turn it on and turn it off, and that would be one of my concerns, then you could turn it on when you're doing things. Let's say you're doing genealogy and you're going through all the records that you have on your computer, and you'd like recall to keep track of it, and then turn it off and only turn it back on again when you're going to continue your research. It's also supposed to do contextual understanding. So the context of queries and providing more relevant results based on what you've done previously. And maybe, like some of us, we can't recall what we did. So recall will recall for us what we're doing. And we've already talked about integrating with Windows Search. All right, so the cons, there have been concerns about the ability to capture and store screenshots of your activity, raising questions about data privacy and potential misuse, like if somebody gets onto your computer while it's turned on. So you should have a good cybersecurity policy in place, which Bob's going to talk to us about later today. And if compromised, the storage screenshots could expose sensitive information, like your finances. And then they're saying if you had excessive reliance on recall, it could lead to a decline in memory and cognitive skills. I don't know. That's stretching it a little bit, I suppose. But I at least wanted to do a little bit of research on that. Let's see what this one came out. I think this is the same. Yeah, they're just going through giving more information, scheduling appointments instead of manually opening your calendar. You can ask Copilot to schedule a meeting, sending emails, draft emails based on your prompts, creative writing, which we have now with AI, but the AI is external to our computer. So this would actually bring it in to the computer itself. And it's going to do its own natural language processing on your computer rather than doing the natural language processing on a server somewhere. And it says it's supposed to learn and improve over time, becoming more effective at understanding, fulfilling your needs. And they say, for example, it's going to be in Word if you're paying for it, paying for the advanced features, and in Excel and in PowerPoint. So I noticed that when they're not saying Copilot Plus in this case, because these features will be available to those with Windows 11 that actually subscribe to the enhanced Copilot capabilities. And then if you then have a Copilot Plus enabled computer with an NPU chip, it is supposed to integrate all that tasking and do more things on your computer than not. At least that's what it's supposed to do. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing again. Bob, your comments about Copilot Plus and what you think is coming down the road with these new enabled computers.
AI in general is getting smarter by the second, and leaps and bounds, and every day you find something new. That includes, of course, Copilot. Copilot is, for those of us that use Windows, it's native AI component. I personally prefer to use ChatGPT. I find that it gives me better answers and more human-like responses. But, that's today. Tomorrow that might change, and it could be Copilot is the better in it. That's just the way AI works.
I see Laura says, unfortunately, Copilot and many other AIs hallucinate. What's hallucination, Bob?
Well, if it can't give you a good answer, it just makes one up. I run into that many a time. And the biggest fool is the fool who automatically takes everything that AI generates as fact. It's like saying, well, everything on the internet is the truth. We all know that that's not the way it works. But, AI says it must be the truth. No, it not necessarily. And part of if you're using AI, you're the one that has to check it for accuracy. 99.9% of the time, it will be very accurate and will do a heck of a better job than you could on your own. But there's always that 1/100th of the time when it outright lies. That's hallucination. And if you don't catch it, then you're the one who turns into a fool because you put it out there for everybody to read, and people will catch that mistake. You put it out there, it's your mistake.
One of the things I started doing, and I noticed that Gemini from Google has a tendency to do that sort of semi-automatically, is I'll ask in my prompt, I'll ask and provide references of,
Provide sources, correct.
yes, provide sources. Now, if it makes up the source,
I'm just going to say, be careful because it will also make up sources.
I've clicked on a source and it wasn't there.
Correct. I've
That
had it made up the history of a whole town in American history that never existed to start off with. Had I just simply accepted what it said as truth and put it out there in my series, I would have been looking like a real dummy. But boy, was it convincing.
yes, was it Bill Morgan?
I've been using Monica, and I like it. It's very convenient. I'm just wondering what other people, if they've been using Monica. If anybody out there has been using Monica.
I'll admit that this is the first I've heard of it, but
Yep, same here.
if you can, Bill, put in chat a link to the website that offers Monica, and we'll take a look at it in the future.
Sure, will do.
Tim?
As a segue to a certain extent, in the previous articles, you brought up about a lot of people with Windows 10 using Windows Help. The replacement from now on is really using AIs, but if they allow it, you have to allow it to be changed to the precision answers to reduce hallucinations to an absolute minimum. But I use this frequently, Nat, for debugging problems on some of my systems since I have multiple systems.
Thank you. Dick, anything else in chat? Okay.
Yeah, there was one other thing that I saw pop up. Somebody asked, what is an insider? It's a glorified beta tester.
Yeah. And I think I just saw something pop up, but I missed it. Let me just see that. What is? What's the best way to get Windows 11 help? I have MS 365 and its help is vaguely just sent to the internet.
What kind of help are we talking about?
Just general help inquiries, I guess.
There are many, many tutorials available on YouTube about all the different functions within Windows 11.
Yeah. Especially, she said 365, so we're talking about the Office.
Oh, the Office part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Again,
agree.
many, many tutorials available. Very good ones.
Yes. Agreed. Okay. Let's go back. Get to the next one. Okay, this came up in our.
You need to share your screen again.
It would help. Okay, I didn't share the screen, huh? I thought I did. Okay, I just switched. Let's see if I can share the screen with a Control-Alt-S. It says. Is it now showing up?
No.
Okay, I'll go back. Go to share. Screen 2. Share. And says I'm sharing.
Mhm.
Got it now?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. All right, this one comes from Thurrott.com. And here's his website. Compatibility issues blocking upgrades to Windows 11. And I'm going to go back to the reader. So they're saying yesterday, Microsoft made Windows 11 24H2 available on non-Copilot PC. So it's longer than yesterday when this article came out. Came with some asterisks. While it's possible to force and manually install the update, Microsoft Installation Assistant Tool or the Windows Insider program, the public rollout via Windows Update will only start in the coming weeks. And we heard that too. As usual, they'll prioritize users who get the latest updates as soon as they're available. Toggle set to on in Windows Update. Me personally, I've got a 7-day delay. I just want it to roll out and then problems come up if they're going to come up and be answered. But if you like to get the latest updates and you're wondering where yours is, you need to change that setting in the Windows Update setting. So they're saying essentially, let's get past that. Here are some of the compatibility issues that led Microsoft to implement upgrade blocks. So Microsoft themselves are blocking things that they know about and waiting, you know, this is where you wait for them to be unblocked and come to you. So apparently there's a safe exam browser, and it's used for verifying the integrity of a safe exam browser installation of Windows, and it may fail to open. Easy anti-cheat, okay. Blocking the update devices running incompatible easy anti-cheat drivers. And that's interesting if Microsoft themselves know people are cheating in order to get Windows 11, and there's a thing called anti-cheat. I'm not quite sure how that works. But at any rate, they've delayed Windows 11 H2. 24 H2, excuse me, because of that. Some devices with fingerprint sensors may have an issue with those sensors becoming unresponsive after locking the device, which would make Windows Hello fingerprint recognition unusable. The resolution of this issue will require new firmware updates. Now, I'm not sure how they let you know this, and you don't find out until your fingerprint doesn't update. I guess if your fingerprint recognition, and that's usually on a notebook, is on a relatively new notebook, and you're still having communications with the manufacturer on a regular basis, you'd get a notice that there is a firmware update. Otherwise, perhaps you'll get a notice from Microsoft saying that you're unable to have the update because you do have a fingerprint problem and update your firmware. So they're going to have some code that takes a look at what computer is it and what model of computer is it that's trying to get the update, and the fact that it's got a fingerprint sensor in it. Because otherwise you install the update and you wouldn't be able to get into your computer with your fingerprint anymore. Some wallpaper customization applications might not launch. Okay. I usually put my wallpaper in and just leave it, but at any rate, they're on hold until that is resolved. Intel Smart Sound Technology drivers with an 11th generation core processor and an Intel SST driver of that variant may receive an error with a blue screen after upgrading to Windows 11. So there's another blue screen issue. And there is, okay, Asphalt 8 Airborne. It's also a gamer. And, you know, some of us may indeed play some games. I used to play games quite extensively, but there literally is a whole subculture in the world. And many of them, millions of them, are using games under Windows in order to play them and are affected by many of these things. And in some instances, in many instances, that the actual configuration of hardware is determined by how many gamers are buying their hardware. And that drives the advances in hardware capability, whether it's the CPUs or the GPUs for graphics. So it says Microsoft is working with its partners to solve compatibility issues. And they said, we recommend affected users not force the installation of Windows 11 24H2 on their devices until they're resolved. And they're using reliability metrics and other data to determine when it can be safely installed. And it won't appear in Windows Update if it detects that your device may have an issue. So they are doing the detection. Let's see here. This is another known issues. It's also from the learnmicrosoft.com, and pretty much goes over the same things that we just looked at Paul Thrott's. Yeah, I recognize these names. So it's basically what we just looked at. So it's another confirmation from the official source. And we talked a little bit before the actual SIG started on leaving behind approximately 9 gigabytes of undeletable files due to a bug. And so this basically says if you were able to do the 24H2 installation, you could have wound up with 9 gigabytes in a cache folder, and you go to right click on that and it just doesn't go away. And the answer is leave well enough alone, in my opinion. If you've already done it, the system is stable. You've got 9 gigabytes used, which is a pain, but it's there. And wait for Microsoft to know and detect when they do come out with a fix. Wait for them to detect it and then come out with a fix for the fix. And you can take a look at this PC World article and read a little bit more about it. But essentially, it's just taking up space. But if that bugs you, you're kind of stuck with it. You either roll it back because you can go in to the history of your updates and usually uninstall that update and roll it back to where it was before. If you are doing restore points on Windows, which you should be doing, you can pick a restore point and restore it and reboot. Or if you are making image backups, which in my opinion, everybody on today should be making an image backup of their computer at least, I'm going to say once a month. I do mine weekly, but so that you catch things just like this and you're not forced to reinstall Windows from scratch. You can go back a month and install your operating system. And what do we got on this one? Okay, so we're back to Copilot. And this is now Copilot with Microsoft 365. And this you pay for, in my opinion, as I understand it. And it's the version of 365 license that you get, and then you add Copilot to it. And they're saying there's enhancements for IT admins and those responsible for managing Copilot in the organization, which would not affect most users. And you get more features. It doubles the number of administrative enhancements. Business chat, again, isn't going to affect people unless you're using the business version. But it does say it's easier to schedule meetings through Copilot in Outlook. And it will suggest a meeting slot, a title, and an agenda for your meeting. And private loop chat. Generate content up to 3,000 words with Windows and Mac getting capability. Platforms can now reference blocks of content up to 75,000 words. And OneNote gets the ability to capture every thought with Copilot. And you can read about it here. I'll just open that up. It's a separate window. Let's see if it opens next to it. Yes. So more than you would probably ever want to know about with Copilot, I guess, if you want to go ahead and dig through it. Suspended access. There's an academy for, okay. The question was, how do I get additional help? So apparently there's a Copilot Academy. Interesting. And Teams meetings, business chat, privately in a loop. All right, that's what we were talking about. So you set up what your goals are and you launch a plan, and it's supposed to come up and create the chat as if you came up with it. How nice. I guess you can get paid for doing your job and let Copilot do the job for you. And Copilot will take all kinds of notes in OneNote and come up and process them for you. How nice. I guess when I was working for the government, I should have had this capability. I'm long retired from that. We done with let's see. Okay, more Copilot. I want to sort of stay with this theme before we branch off. So let's second new wave of Copilot 5, new features coming. I think we covered that back here. What is this one? What happens with Windows goes into, this is a new section. All right. So I think we are done with Copilot. Let's see here. No, we got Microsoft Paint. Let's bring that over here because, okay, this Paint has a new feature. So Paint is now having AI upgrades.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember drawing stick figures with it and painting with paintbrushes, but not doing much more. So what they're saying brings up memories of sitting at my friend's parents' clunky computer drawing rudimentary doodles with the spray can tool over pictures of puppies. There you go. Now, decades later, Microsoft Paint is barely recognizable. The newest updates to the photo and graphics editor introduced generative AI features showing the applications that still can be relevant. So this is the fill and erase feature, which is, and they're saying this is very much like the magic eraser tool for both Pixel and iOS devices. And I have a whole series of things that I bought years ago from a company called Inpixio. And I know Huey has some of those or had some of those. And it had a lot of these features, and it's not AI. It's just computer features that let you take out backgrounds, erase certain parts of photos, enhance others, things like that. So it looks like essentially Microsoft is bringing Paint up to speed by putting in AI processing types of features. The generative fill, add new elements to an existing image, generative erase, a brush that you can paint over an object you wish to remove, and it says you can just click on it and get it to erase, and then you can compare the before and after images. So I guess, like, I would want to take out this person's shoulder and this person's ear and all the rest of that and just have these three people. Now, that would be interesting, because I know when I've tried it myself, I wind up getting a sort of a mishmash of stuff. And it doesn't really look like you're looking at this particular person and that particular person, and this one's gone. So if the AI can take that out, that would be a good feature. Let's see. Enhancement tools. Go ahead.
I think you skipped over Co-Creator, which is text to image in Paint.
Was it up here?
It's someplace in there. I know it's part of Paint because I've used it in Paint.
Yeah.
Co-Creator.
Let's
And
see.
it allows you to do
here,
text to
let's
image.
search on it. Control F. Go. Like that. How about Creator? There we go. Yes. However, Microsoft announced an expansion to a feature added to the application earlier this year, a tool called Co-Creator, which users can generate AI images using text prompts. All right, let's just click on that and open up a window, a tab right next to it. And here is from make use of how to use Paint Co-Creator to create AI images in Windows 11. It can create multiple versions of images using DALL-E. Okay, and I know this is an AI that Huey uses extensively based on text input. So they're basically merging that. I'm sure Microsoft is paying for the license to use DALL-E. And how this tells you how to use it. Choose the styles, because we're not actually going to see what's in there. There we go. Wait for the feature to generate images based on the prompt. So it looks like, doesn't show us the prompt. Here, it's describe what you'd like to create. A cat wearing a pirate hat, riding a car in the countryside. Okay. So that's what got created from the text. And now you can do that in Paint if you're paying for it, I suppose. We'll have to see. And then you can save it. So they're saying, is it any good? Resolution is capped at 1024 by 1024. In the experimental phase, you only get 50 credits to try out this feature. After that, it runs out. You can still use the Copilot to generate images using the Bing image creator. Okay. So interesting that they've put a limitation in Paint. So if they put a limitation for credits and it's in a native application, I would think they'll monetize it somehow and say, all right, if you increase your subscription to Copilot Plus, in order to do this in Paint, we'll give you X number of credits a month or something like that for Y number of dollars or something similar. See if we're still set Copilot Plus. Okay, so all right, I'm going to come back out of this. Stop share. Okay, questions about Copilot and AI in Windows 11, either what we just did or what we did up till now, or comments? Everybody's saturated.
What's the time frame, Mike?
Bob, are you actually subscribed to Copilot for the Pro version?
I think Copilot I dropped because I went with ChatGPT. You can subscribe yourself to death in these AIs, and you have to draw a line someplace. And I think I originally had Copilot Plus, and I dropped it and went with ChatGPT, the paid version.
Right now, I tend to just use Copilot. I had the preview, and like Dick Vogel mentioned, I think it was you, Dick, that said it had gone away, or was that Steve?
Yeah, it no longer appears as an icon.
Yeah. So I went ahead and I went to the Windows Store, and I just found Copilot on the Windows Store and downloaded it, and it put an icon in my start menu. And I could also pin it to the start menu, and I also could drag and drop it to my toolbar as an app.
You can also open up Copilot in your browser, and once it's open in the browser, then pin it to your desktop and eventually to your taskbar as a progressive web app.
Yes. So it's there for me to use for comparison purposes. And sometimes Copilot will give me an answer that Gemini doesn't care to give me. It'll be some subject that Gemini says, I'm sorry, I can't give you an answer on that. Or I can't process that website, or I can't process that YouTube video, and I use other things for YouTube anyway. But Copilot will. So it's just good having multiple. And I do have ChatGPT, which looks like on its own upgraded me to 4.0. Is that how it's referred to? I think that's what they call 4.0. Okay, we've got about 15 to 20 minutes left. So let's go back and go into some of the productivity kinds of things that Huey put on the agenda. So the first thing he's got is what happens when Windows goes into sleep mode. Let's find out what
happens when Windows goes into sleep mode. Sleep mode is a handy feature on most computer operating systems, including Windows. It allows you to lower the system's power consumption while also retaining your work for a quick resume. When you have to take a short break while working, you don't have to shut your computer down completely. Instead, put it to sleep and quickly get on with it after the break. But what exactly happens when you put your Windows system to sleep? Is your current work saved? What about Windows updates and active downloads? Let's find out. What exactly happens when Windows is put to sleep? The Windows Sleep Down process. As soon as you select the sleep option under the Windows Power Options, your system undergoes a series of transitions to switch itself from a regular operational state to a low-powered state. Here is what is involved in sleep mode. Save the active session to RAM. Windows will begin the process by saving the current system state to the RAM. All your currently active programs, processes, files, and folders will be stored in the RAM, which can be quickly restored upon system wake-up. Power down the components. Next, Windows will power down the CPU, GPU, display, and more to conserve energy. External components like USB drives and printers are also put into a low-power state. However, the external mouse and keyboard will remain active on standby to be able to wake up the system. Enter low-power state. The system will now enter a low-power state, where only RAM and wake-up triggers will be active. The wake-up triggers could be keyboard, mouse, or network activity. When the system wakes up, the process is reversed, and all the components will be powered up. All previously open apps, files, and processes reappear exactly as they were before sleep mode was activated. Since the data is readily available in the RAM cache, this wake-up process is almost instant. Is your work saved? Yes, but only temporarily. The most important question you might have before letting your PC go to sleep is whether all your current work will be automatically saved. The answer is yes. When your system goes to sleep, the current state, i.e., everything you are currently working on, will be shifted to random access memory RAM. This lets you resume your work exactly how you left it. It's similar to pausing a game and resuming it in the same state. However, it's temporary and not equivalent to saving your work on the disk. If your laptop has a poor battery life or there's a power outage when your computer is asleep, it can lead to a complete Windows shutdown. When it turns back on, the RAM will get refreshed and all your unsaved work will be lost, unless the program itself has autosave. Although Windows usually saves the entire state to the hard disk in such cases, this might not work on desktops during a sudden power cut. So, it's best to save your essential tasks before putting Windows to sleep, especially if your device relies on an external power supply or is running on a low battery. Does Windows update in sleep mode? And what about active downloads? If you have a pending Windows update and an ongoing download, both will be paused when the system is in sleep mode. This is because most background processes are suspended in the low power state. However, Windows has a feature called Wake Timers, which allows the system to wake up from sleep mode to perform certain tasks, including updates. For instance, if a critical Windows update is scheduled during off hours, your computer can be woken up to install it. After the update is completed, the system usually returns to sleep mode. In the case of downloads, if you are using a download manager, it will immediately pause the downloads when the system is asleep. When the system wakes up, the downloading will automatically resume, or you can manually do that. However, if you're downloading through a browser, in some cases the ongoing download is canceled. You might have to restart the download when the PC wakes up. How is sleep mode different from hibernate? And when to use either one? Many users are confused between the sleep mode and hibernate mode on Windows and sometimes use these terms interchangeably. However, there is one key difference. Unlike sleep mode, Windows doesn't save the current session on RAM in hibernation mode. Instead, it uses your SSD or HDD for the same process. This means when you enable hibernate mode, your computer is completely off and uses almost zero power. Your work remains safe even if the laptop battery drains or sudden loss of power turns off the desktop. So this makes hibernation better than sleep, and I should use it rather than the sleep mode, right? In my opinion, yes, but it depends. Since hibernation stores the session on the storage drive versus RAM, it can take longer than sleep mode to resume the OS state. However, if your device has an SSD rather than an HDD, you may not notice much difference. Generally, you can use sleep mode when taking shorter breaks, but set it to hibernate during longer breaks. What happens when Windows goes into sleep mode?
Okay, so I'm gonna come back out again. I will admit to not using either. I used to leave my computer on all the time and just turn my monitors off. Now, essentially, I just go ahead and I set my monitors to go into sleep on their own, usually after an hour of inactivity, and I will turn my computer off. It used to be the belief that, well, you know, every time you turn your computer on, you're shocking all the electric components. So, you know, I'd probably call on Tim to make a comment about hardware's capabilities in today's environment. But from my standpoint, I have not seen, say, over the last 5 years with my current desktop's configuration, I've not seen a problem booting up when I put power back on the computer. And I also found something interesting, and it's got to be in one of the Windows settings under power somewhere. But actually, if I had actually been working on something in, say, a Word document and didn't close it, I had saved it, but didn't close it and just left it open and then said, okay, shut the computer down. When I come back, the Word document is opened up and it's opened back to exactly where I left it. And not something that I remember specifically asking it to do. So I'm sort of getting a hybrid sleep kind of situation when I shut down and when I start up again. Tim, your thoughts on
when I
today?
leave my
Go ahead,
Go ahead,
Bob.
Tim. When I leave my computer for any length of time, I don't shut it off. I use the Windows key and the L key that locks my keyboard. And that means that nobody else is going to do anything. And as soon as I come back, all I have to do is put in whatever I do when I first start the computer, password or a numeric whatever is set up, and I go right back to where I was when I left the computer. But it means that my computer is safe while I'm away from it. I can't have grandkids running in and playing with the keyboard and doing all kinds of stuff to mess it up. That won't work.
So you're leaving it on overnight then?
At night, I usually shut it off, but during the day, it's on all day long. I may not be sitting in front of it. I may be out of the house altogether, but the computer's left on during the day. I shut it off at night.
And the comment was made in the article, if you're using standby, even with a good UPS, there's enough times when a surge will get through and the UPS will take a quarter of a second to come back on, and I'm rebooting. So I've lost whatever was open at the time, especially during the current hurricane situation when we were concerned about power holding. So I always turn the computer off at night and just bring it on the next day.
I always turn mine off at night as well.
Tim, I was going to ask you from a hardware standpoint, what are your thoughts about today's modern hardware and the so-called shock every time you turn your computer back on, if you're doing that on a daily basis? You have to unmute. Tim?
Tim seems to be frozen.
Oh, no, he's moving. Did you hear the question?
No, please repeat it. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. With today's modern hardware, if you're turning your computer off every day when you're done, turning it back on again in the morning, do you feel that the hardware is taking excess, electrical shocks every time you're turning it on and off and on and off and on and off again? Which was the argument for either going to standby or hibernate.
There's always been two schools of thought about turning it on and turning it off. Today's hardware, and that includes going back, I would say, roughly 10 years, it's probably unnecessary to leave them on and have detrimental results. However, when you get into the real old computers like I do, especially those that come from the 1990s, Now you're talking about a lot of things failing, including the power switch. That was one of the most common issues. Also, the electronics have dramatically changed decade by decade since then, made improvements to reduce some of the hardware failures that used to plague us in the early days. So, as an end result, you have the option of being able to shut down daily. This is a positive thing because a lot of computers, if they're left on, you've got to reboot them every 10 days maximum to get rid of what I call cobwebs, where it gets confused after a certain point in time, starts misbehaving, you don't understand why, and if you do a restart, suddenly the problem disappears. Well, the same thing happens when you shut down nightly your computer. It clears all the cobwebs out from that day, and they're not going to affect you the next day.
Okay, thank you. Stephen?
Yeah, good. I thought a while back we covered that and we said the cleanup is quite different between a shutdown and restart versus a reboot. I think we indicated, if I'm not mistaken, that the reboot did a much cleaner cleanup than shutting down and restarting. I may be wrong about that, but I remember one of our sessions talked about that.
Restart and reboot is the same thing. Shut down and turn on doesn't do anything with getting rid of garbage.
Right.
It just simply cuts off power. But restart actually clears out the cobwebs.
Yep. That's my understanding.
I saw something pop up. Let me just bring up on the chat. Laura Michaels said to everybody, I use a shortcut with C Windows System 32 shutdown exe /S/T0 for a full shutdown.
Correct.
Okay. And so when you do that, are you clearing it out? And then the next.
But still, yes, you are, but not exactly the same as you do with a restart.
Okay.
There
So-
are things that happen in a restart that only happen when you do a restart.
Okay.
For restarts and shutdowns, if you don't want fast boot to save things, hold down your shift key, click on the restart or shutdown, and let go of the shift key. It will not keep a copy, and therefore it is a clean startup or a restart.
So do a shutdown with your finger on the shift key.
Yes, and then as soon as the screen starts changing, let go of the shift key.
Okay. Now I'm wondering if that could be one of the options to shut down exe and do it the same way with it.
Well, another option, if you think that fast start is causing you problems by saving an image of what you were doing on your computer at a restart or shutdown, is to go into power management and turn off fast boot. It's something you'll probably have to look up for your machine. You can do it through the old control panel while it still exists. They're getting rid of that. And there will be other ways of doing basically the same thing. But fast boot sometimes causes problems on some systems, especially those who are doing Windows and Linux on the same machine, whether it's old dual boot or using an external USB device to bring up the Linux.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think we got time for one more agenda item. So let me just close that up. We'll do a share again. 2. Switch over. How to resize images natively in Windows. They're showing us how to resize images using the Windows built-in Photos app. The following steps were done in Windows 11, but work in a very similar way Windows 10. Now they go through the individual steps and they give some examples. And I found out that if I actually open up my file manager and I have a picture, I sorted this by size because I wanted to get some large images because most of my images are fairly small and I wouldn't need to resize it. So I have a picture here of Ted Goodwin's computer taken at his house. And if I just right click on it, I have on here resize with image resizer. So it's actually one of my options, and I'm not sure how it got there, but let me bring it up and let's see what I get. Image resizer. So fits within, ignore orientation, 4A by 4A. Let's see if there's a settings. Opened up on my other panel. So here's what image resizer comes up with. And it looks like it's in under general and then image resizer. So we've got some presets. You can choose the pixel size you want for small, for medium, for large, or if it's on a phone. You can change it if you don't want JPEG. Let's see what we got. No, you can actually change it to a PNG or a TIFF, which is interesting. Okay. Quality level, I've got set for fairly high. So I actually, if I'm going to resize it, I'll probably make it 50% as a default, which still should give me a halfway decent quality for the web. I'm not going to play with either of these two. And it will save the file with a format of whatever you chose up here so you know what it's doing. And it's going to put a time stamp in there. Okay, so that's what I chose to do. So now let's go back. Let's see. Let's make it 4. Okay, it's going to be small, but I guess it's going to be pretty small. And let's resize it. Now, where did you go? Hello, Ted. Maybe it didn't put it back. There we go. I just saw it. Ted's new setup small. Okay. So let's look at the picture to start with. The only thing I would like to have had it do is, I'm stuck with this again. Let's go back here. Where are you? Sure, what happened to it? I minimize this. There we go. Okay, what I wanted to do is actually see it. So here it is initially. Okay. Now let's see if I can open them side by side. And here it is in small. Okay, and I can make it a little bit bigger. Make it about the same size on the screen. So I haven't really done anything to enhance it. And to my eyes on a 24-inch monitor, looks to be pretty good if I was just going to post this on a website or send it in an email. So it doesn't look like it degraded anything. Let's take a look at the size again. So we went from, oh, okay. Yeah, Right, we went from 1.6 megabytes down to 91 kilobytes. So that's built into Windows. That's not bad at all. Okay. Comments about what anyone does with their photos if they need them to be smaller or larger? Anybody playing with photos these days? Just upload them to Google Photos or,
I use Earth and View.
okay. Do you change your file size at all or?
Yeah, it's built right into Earth and View. I can do many, many things.
Stephen? Your hand is up.
Yeah, what I do is I just copy the picture, put it in a Word document, and then that's easy to shrink it in the Word document and then recapture it. It's probably not the best way to do it, but it works just fine.
Okay, now I've got to go find. Where did you go here? Hang on just a moment. I've got to go find my browser, which I minimized. Come back here. Okay. I'm going to share my screen again. While I'm doing this, Bob, would you like to tell the audience what you're going to be doing today for the Central Florida Computer Society starting in about 10 minutes?
We're going to talk about Cybersecurity Awareness Month.
And why is that important for people to know?
Because this is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, but cybersecurity awareness should happen every month.
So we're going to take a 10-minute break. I need a quick break anyway. And we'll start right again at 3 o'clock. If you'd like to come back, you don't have to leave the meeting. The meeting will still be up. And I think it'll be an interesting presentation, very timely, and worth your while to attend. So let me go back here. Share again. This has been the Central Florida Computer Society and Sarasota Technology Users Group, Windows Special Interest Group for the month of October. And the video of this recording will be available on Huey Poplock's website, huey.net/WinSIG, and it will look something like this when it gets posted towards the end of this month or the first part of next month. Thank you for joining us today. And I'll stop recording.